Mk3 from Cortina City. Welcome to another engine build video. We've got to get a car to Gibraltar, but the engine's knackered. So we took the engine out and we're carrying on rebuilding, especially the cylinder head. But join us. Just before I go, this was definitely an imminent fail on Tina G. I'm glad we got this far because this tensioner wheel, this is the cam belt tensioner wheel, locks up. Can you see that? Can you hear it? Hang on. Just locks there. See? It's definitely on its way out. You can get past it, but it's binding. So one of them bearings is seized up. Now whether that was because the engine's been standing for so long, I don't know. This could be what happens. I don't know if these are probably just packed and sealed units. But that's gone, that's a fail, and it's an aftermarket one as well. It isn't stamped up with the normal Ford markings, it's an aftermarket. It's gone. Scrap it, it's just a piece of scrap. Out it goes, that's nothing but trouble. Not worth taking any risks or putting oil on it and saying you can free it up because it's suspect and it has to go. Right folks, we left it off with the JB Weld and I have been busy just sanding this flat. Basically a belt of sandpaper, in this case 120, and this action like that until we got this finished. Blast down with the air. Okay, get the a little bit of dust away, and then I'm going to go up in the reservoir nozzle, and Henry's going to help. We're going to blast and back out just in case any bits went inside the reservoir. So Henry on, Henry on, Henry on. Okay, let's turn the compressor off. I'm going to fill the reservoir up now, just above that line to make sure there's no leaks before I paint it with the Extreme Chassis Black. I'll show you that in a sec. But we've got to bung up the return hose. I don't think we need to bung up the high pressure outlet. That would require me turning this, but we could prime it. It's not a bad thing to have some fluid in there. So we'll put the hydraulic steering fluid in. First bung up the hole. Let me see if we can do that. We should be able to just use the steering rack connector, I guess. Really, we'd be better off with something else than this, but no, it won't reach. Whoops, that's not a good idea. Using that, we need an off-cut of hose just to block this reservoir. We need something to block that reservoir there. The reservoir inlet or the return. I'll be right back while I find something. Stop recording. Right, bunged up there. Let's see what we get. ATF and power steering fluid. In we go. See what happens. I've used masking tape. I'm not holding anything out for that. But you never know. Looks like we fill. It's coming out the top of the high pressure outlet. And I can feel it generating pressure. That is strong, so this is working. This pump works. As I turn that on, I'm just going to adjust the lens. Let's get into the frame. I hate it when the camera wobbles. So turning this, folks. I'm just going to try and spray a jet. Spray liberally. It's pressuring up on my finger, so we're good. We have got a good pump. Just reverse it back, it's going to dribble out, so let's just put this there and catch that. All over the place for a lovely mess. We're up to this level, no signs of a leak there. A lot of lovely mess Pete's made. It's everywhere. Luckily it ain't covered in paint. Luckily ATF is easy to mop up. Why didn't you block the top hole as well? I don't think you'll get it now with masking tape because it's all going to be lost its adhesion, but we can try a sticking plaster over a botch. Pete has botched that up big time. That's a mess. That's a right royal mess. A little bit of hose would have gone down nice just there. That's a right royal mess. Oh, lovely mess. Complete mess. You want to come over and just see the mess I've made. You know, it doesn't give us time to really nicely leave it cooking. I wonder if, let me take that rubbish off. There is a hose here. One of my test hoses is probably the right fitting. Yes it is, we're in. We're back in the game. Pete C's back in the game. Pete C's not back in the game, these don't fit. They should do. No. Another failed attempt. How do you block up a hole? Yeah, I didn't think it'd come out of that, folks. Oh, woo! Don't know what to do. Except let it all drain out. What a mess. No idea. Stick here like, I've just tripped over Henry. This is all going startlingly well. As soon as you introduce fluid into the mix and you ain't done your homework, you're in a whole world of trouble. It's just going to drain out mega slow. By going backwards, it does draw it back in. So do you want to sit here all day turning this to stop it dribbling or what? Just don't know. The level has dropped below. It's almost drained out actually. Might as well just let it drain out for now. You get the idea anyway. We are checking for the leaks where the JB Weld repair went. And I'm hoping that the thickness of the chassis black will cover those crock sander marks. It could do with another run over with grit. Shall we do that? Just give it another run. So just a strip of 120. And then we just do this, the old fat reducing machine. Old fat reducing machine. We're pretty good there. I'm just leaving that reservoir now full. There's no apparent leaks. I've got a hose blocking the outlet, so that's running good. I'm now cleaning up the inlet manifold. It's very gunked up, so it's been in a degreaser overnight, then jet washed down, and now what I'm doing, I'm just finishing off the last of the contamination. The jet washer has a good attempt, but it didn't get into everything. So what I'm using, this is brick cleaning acid. It's very dangerous, so wear goggles like this, and this will take off a very slight amount of the metal, would you believe. It attacks into it. Now we don't want to do it on any of the machined faces. It would take ages to actually destroy the machine face, but this will get off the remainder of the gunk. I'll have to jet wash it back. So it's pretty strong stuff. It slightly burns into the alley, so you've got to be careful, but it will clean it quite well. But you just got to be careful and not leave it on too long. So I've just coated it. See a lot of gunk coming off. Now I'm going to take this away outside and jet wash that back, and then it's primed then. And then we're just going to coat this with high temp silver paint. I'm not going to powder coat this. The other ones on my cars are actually powder coated. I'll bring it up to you now. Goggles on, as I said, but that'll just give that a final clean. And then we'll do some high temp paint on it. And that's all we're going to do with the inlet manifold. Some more goodies have arrived. I actually decided to go for, rather than take any chances, it's just not worth it. I've got this Ultra, what they call the Mk3 belt and tensioner kit, and it seems to be good quality. It comes in its own presentation box, which I thought was nice. Not that there's a lot in there. There is our new cam belts and idler wheel. So whilst it's not stamped Ford, it doesn't need to be. I didn't want to take any chances, so brand new idler wheel and cam belt may as well. It's not a Gates, but it's a Dayco. I do believe they're good. So on we go with that. We'll fit that. Best to just do it when you're done for good. Well, you're done for your 30,000 minimum. 30,000 whatever, and then the starter motor. They class this as a high power output unit. This is made by Plus Line, which is, I think it's Dutch company, if I recall when I was researching this. They're not marking up their location on there, but I think they are a Dutch company. What's the construction like? Well, we're nicely machined there. Some codes here. Doesn't look fantastically constructed, to be fair. Braiding separating a little bit there. I don't know that matters, but we're not on a blade fitting, so we'll have to make an adapter here. It's on a post fitting, we need to be on a Lucar. We'll just make a Lucar adapter for that. Main battery cable, normal and okay there. Lightweight, much more compact than the big heavy unit we were looking at earlier in the film. And again, just bolt and braces. This should turn around the engine faster, apparently. I don't know how the gearing works in these. They're on about some kind of gear reduction or that makes some high torque. I think what it is a higher speed, then the quicker, more reduction gives higher torque. I think that's how it works. I think it is. So you gear it right down. Let me know if I'm wrong on that, by the way. This part numbers are 590 508 103010. Plus Line. That was eBay. Price, it was £98. But I cannot afford to have an automatic vehicle fail on a starter motor, because as I said, you cannot get yourself out. There would be ways. Excuse me. Hello. There would be ways. Hello. There would be ways. Would be ways to get an engine going on an auto. I don't know how you'd do it. You'd have to connect something to the 19mm crank pulley bolt somehow and hand crank it, you know. But anyway, without starter motor on an auto, you're pretty much stranded. I cannot think of any way around it. Let me know if you know of a way of getting an automatic gearbox engine going if the starter motor's gone. I can't think of one other than the crank. Anyway, that doesn't matter. We're going to move on to something else now. What are we on? Well, I'm looking, you can't see it. I'm watching that filler neck on the power steering and it's not leaking. Brick acid was on the inlet manifold, then I jet washed down. That's drying off. We'll then prime that. Well, no, it's actually the high temp silver straight to metal. We'll see how that performs over the years. Can't be any worse than what it is now. It's not concourse, this job, as I keep saying. It's just tidy and clean to work with. So looking at the engine now, we're going to take you over there. We will I'll just hang that. I think I'll prime this pulley because they always rust and look terrible. So I'm going to put some paint on that. I'm going to prime that. I'll use the Extreme Chassis Black on it. I'm going to bring that into screen. We've shown you that before. I'm looking as I speak. I've got some Extreme Chassis Black prime and then the main one on. I'm going to do that with the crank wheel. God, I get my words mixed up. With the belt tensioner wheel, I'll mask off the actual pulley itself and just do the bracket. These always rust out. So if we just mask and take that off and just prime it up. I won't prime the back because they like to slide on the clean face of the cylinder head. I'm going to rotate you now to look at that. The clean face of the cylinder head. Slow rotation on the camera for you. Wake the screen up for me because the screen goes to sleep. And then a gentle pan up if we can. Can for the pan. There you go. Nice and slow this time. So we're going in here. We're going to prime it. Give it the chassis black as well, and that fits. You know what, these always get, oh no, hang on a sec, I've got that wrong. It's this through here, it's not that one. These are the bolts that hold the cam casing. I've cleaned them as well, got all the threads clean on those. Hopefully I'm not blocking your view. I might put a little bit of copper slip on that, just so that if I ever alter this, I don't strip the threads. These threads are delicate on these bolts. There, that goes on there like that. So this is a mock-up. That's be coming off in a sec. Why did you put it on then? Oh no, that goes there, that's it. That goes there, that locks into it. There's your tension. Hang on, there you go, see? So I always used to forget how to set these up, and now I'm pretty good. So we've covered this many times on Cortina City, this tensioning system. We'll go through the whole belt installation in a later part of the film, but how the tensioner works is here, the bolt's not in it, but there's a bolt there. And what you do, you push that back and lock it in place. Then fit your belt, and when you're ready, you release that, turn around once on your crank and then lock it in place, and that automatically preloads the belt. So that's how it works. It's a preload spring, and then you lock on. That's the idea. The spring to me feels a little weak than ones I'm used to. I can get it there. You can see why you keep this face clean of paint. There's no point, you just scratch the paint. So this face here, I've gone over that with a sanding machine, a palm sand, then I lacquered it. I don't know if the lacquer will hold. It was petrol resistant high temp lacquer, but I like to see the metal face on here. This is designed to not have any paint on it, so I like to just lacquer that clear. It stops it flash rusting. This wheel off and then copper slipped, you can see. That will go back on because that's been painted. It's right behind me, coming into your screens now. So that wheel's cleaned up and can go back on. Okay, again, Extreme Chassis Black on that one. I'll be showing you that later. So that's that area. We're waiting for the thermostat housing, the new one, to arrive. Once all those parts are in position, I'll then begin to put all the final items on. I'm going to actually just mock up that I've got everything now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to slide everything into position so that I've got a full kit of parts, and then we'll begin the final assembly of it all. So we're just waiting for the thermostat housing to arrive. The one we've got's not bad, but again, I ordered a new one. Oil catcher can's been popped in position. Again, that's been cleaned. I'm going to bring that to your screen as well. Here's the oil catcher can. It's waiting for another coat. That was fully stripped back. Most of the work on the oil catcher can took place in the derusting solution. It did most of the work for us. One to remember, when you put your water pump on, there's an odd water pump bolt. It looks like this, and that fits on the right hand upper piece and bolts the water pump on, and there's this collar on it which the cam casing slots into. So your cam casing comes in and slots onto that, then you bolt the cam casing through those with some special bolts. They're actually shanked bolts. They're actually little 10mm head bolts which go in here. Then the shank stops them from tightening up anymore, and that basically locks your cam casing in position without crushing it right up. There's a kind of, basically the shank of the bolt stops you tightening it up anymore. And in the cam casing it should have 2 rubber washers. It hasn't got them here. Here's the what we call the horseshoe there, and the horseshoe clips on to that bolt. I always put a little bit of grease on them like that, see, and that's there. And this, hold on, sorry, when I said upper, it's actually the lower, so correction there, lower bolt. And that would fit in like this. So it's the lower bolt of the pump. I always thought it was the upper one, but it's not. It's the lower bolt of the pump down here. Creates a place for this to slot into. Careful with that. If you do re-powder coat or paint, these have got to be stripped and re-powder coated, but I put the rubber, there's a rubber sponge goes on the back. In this case it's deteriorated, it probably wasn't a good one at the time. I've got the right one now. That stops rattle on the casing. They can rattle like crazy if you don't get these set right. Get this noise. So you've got to make sure you set that right. That's about it for today. I'm tired. I'm going to leave it for now. Hopefully you were on screen with most of that. I bet you learned some of it, to be fair. You were reading down there. If I was indeed off screen, then I'll go over that again. So cut there, part 2, cam casing locating bolt, looks like this, fits at the bottom of the water pump, clips into a little horseshoe clip on your cam casing. There, like this. And that's fitted down there. And then 2 shanked 8-10mm head bolts go into these posts, and the shank stops you over tightening the crankcase, the cam belt timing cover, stops you from over tightening it. The reason you don't over tighten it is it has little rubber eyelet grommets in here, and you would squash them out if you didn't. So the shank on the bolt goes in, then it can't turn anymore, and it's just at the point where the rubber is holding it, and the whole thing's isolated with the rubbers, so you don't get cam rattle. They also have a rubber seal on this side, a sponge type seal, which stops rattling. These are notorious for rattling if you don't set them right. Okay, so that's a little bit on that. What I'm going to do now is put everything on that I've got so far, keep on building this up, and then I'm calling it a day. I can feel the tiredness coming on. I will get the paint onto the inlet manifold so it's curing overnight. PC at the controls. This is Cortina City. Absolutely no leaks detected in our filler neck repair to the power steering pump. Check back if you just wanted to see what we did. That's not leaking at all. It's been bone dry for hours, so I'm going to drain the fluid back out. Got the first bit of primer paint on it as well. I'm going to drop the pump down so I can paint it properly, but we need to get the oil out, the fluid out rather. That'll drain out that bit first. You can speed it up if we want. Let me just do this freehand. It's actually pumping it out now as I turn the wheel, the drive cod, the pulley rather. So I'm hand emptying it, proving that the pump at least is having a go at working. You can hear that. Trying to keep steady. For there you go, that's a better angle. Okay, so you get the idea. That wouldn't have harmed the pump to have some fluid in there. It's a new old stock pump, as I explained. Also removed the masking tape, which did hold out. I didn't think it would. It had a go at leaking, but it held out. to get a blade on that to remove that. Stickier than I thought, folks. In the blade department, there's always a blade in. You know what? That's another thing that disappears. Lighters, not that I use them much. But, blades, rulers, they disappear, don't they? Yeah, I chucked. Oh, there it is. Well, okay, in this instance. But I've got boxes of these, they just seem to disappear. Have you ever noticed that? Where do all the Stanley blades go? As Whitney Houston may sing. Where do all the lonely hearts go, Whitney? I don't know. I've cut that. I cut it again. I expect a bit will come out of here. It's stickier than you think, isn't it? You wouldn't think it. It's a bit of masking tape there. Putting up a fight. There we go. That's going to drain the remainder of it. And then I'll pivot it back so I can paint the repair, put some on it, but only just to see how the filler was. And it is smooth, you're not going to notice that I fixed that, so it doesn't need any extra filling as such. Body filling, that is, not filling of fluid. Removing this, and that's that sticky plaster off. So what I'd do with this to continue the paint is I'd just pivot it, so take off 2 of these and tilt it back and paint it. Then it's drying overnight, then it's done then. I like some of the paint jobs to be curing overnight. You might have noticed I put the indicator marks for the timing on there. I've set and fitted the camshaft sprocket with its backing plate. Now, here's something to look at. I'll get the torch for this. This is a little bit of interest for those learning about Pintos. Those familiar will already know. Nothing wrong with a refresh. Stamped into the block, into the head, is a white dot. Well, it's an imprinted dot. I've put the white paint in it. I have to try and get the light on so you can see it. You can see it there now. Look straight through here. You see that white dot. And also pointing to it is an arrow built into the plate which fits behind the sprocket wheel. And by the way, make sure you got the correct sprocket wheel for the top, because I do believe they're different. So you could mix the bottom, the auxiliary sprocket wheel up with the top. That wouldn't be good. I think they're different. You can tell if it's right by the backing plate has a keyway on it for the Woodruff key, which matches this hole here, so that it all lines up. If you use this wheel, I think that backing plate hole where that pointer is doesn't match the holes in here, so that's why you know you've got the right sprocket, because you can mix the top and the auxiliary. Anyway, that pointer, when the camshaft is in 180, it indicates, hold on, let me explain this better. It can point at that in 2 positions on the cam. I think, let me get this right. If I turn that, the ratio, this turns half as many turns as the bottom sprocket, because the bottom sprocket's smaller, it turns faster. So for every 2 turns of the crankshaft, you get 1 turn of this. Alright, now this is all about lining up the cam belt. What you need to do to line the cam belt up on top dead center is you go for the compression stroke on the camshaft. So this white line lines up with the marker on the block. It's actually on the front casing, but you've got that. I've painted it in white, so it's going to be easier later with the strobe when we've got the engine running. Where if they're all lined up, this isn't quite lined up, get what I mean. They're all lined up. You want the cam shaft to be on the compression stroke, and that means both of these, piston 1, this is piston 1, both of these closed. You can tell they're closed because the lobes here are out and they're not pushing the valve down, so neither valve is open. Both of those, in fact, you can tell by lightly rattling the rocker, there's movement there, the springs aren't compressed, that piston is closed up. So what's going to happen, that piston's closed, that is a sealed unit. As this was coming up here to the, approaching the top dead center mark, it was compressing that cylinder. That cylinder is now ready to explode, and it would explode because we'd get the spark in, the spark plug there, and that would ignite the fuel air mixture that's been compressed. We know it's been compressed because both these valves are closed, and that this timing mark is on its way up and the piston is on its way up. So I have to slightly turn that. The number 1 piston is coming down. The engine turns clockwise, of course, so the piston is coming up. Piston is coming up, it will reach the very top of its stroke when those lines are all together. That's called top dead center, which means this cam in this particular position has got these 2 valves shut and the piston is coming up, therefore squashing the air. That's a compression stroke, ready to ignite the fuel that's been compressed, the fuel and air that's been compressed. If it was an exhaust stroke, which it will be on the next turn of this, that's the 180 I was on about, then that would be have the exhaust or the inlet, it depends on which part of the cycle of the firing it is, one will open. In this case you can tell which one it's going to be. It's going to be the one where the lobe's going to hit first, so it's going to give this one push down on this rocker, the first rocker. The first rocker here is that valve there, and that valve there corresponds to the exhaust, so it's exploded, and then as it continues to turn it will then open this valve. Then the next time this comes round it will push the gas out. After it's done that, halfway through coming up, so around the next part of this, the turn, the inlet valve will open next and draw some more fuel in, then close, and as this then carries on, they're both closed, it's managed to get rid of the exhaust gas, it's brought in some fuel and air mixture by opening the other valve, the inlet valve. Now then both valves are shut, it comes back round again on its second cycle of this, and then compresses again, and the cycle repeats. And what you need to happen, as well as both of these being closed and that being at top dead center, you line them all up by looking at this pointer. This pointer here is like a spike, they call it the mountain. Sometimes they refer to the dot that's stamped into the cylinder head as the moon. So they say that the mountain peak and the moon would be lined up there with both valves shut. That is the proper top dead center to match. That's the compression stroke for number 1. Okay, same time all those are lined up. You would then install your cam belt at that position. Also, what to note is you would have your distributor in here, and you'd rotate this until the rotor arm of your distributor is pointing at plug number 1, the plug which connects to piston number 1. That means the whole thing is ready for a firing sequence. You can lift out and push back in the distributor till it's in a position where the vacuum advance diaphragm is approximately around the oil filter area. You don't want it anywhere else. You need to make it so that you can twist that to get your timing. So you want it halfway between an adjustable point. If you can't get that, you lift it out, turn it and drop it back in. Then turn this till the rotor is pointing at plug number 1. When you install your distributor cap, the rotor is firing on, pointing at ignition lead number 1. Because what happens is this. It's on that compression stroke that we talked about. It's coming round clockwise. Both these valves are closed. Okay, so it's squashed the air and the fuel. At the same time that that happens, this is also turning, and because it's on 1, the points will be set to open at that point. So you would adjust the points or the electronic ignition so that just by slightly rocking that, you are opening and closing or activating the electric ignition to get the spark. So if you had your ignition switched on and you had your distributor in here and the rotor on pointing at plug lead 1, you can have your cap off as long as you know where plug lead 1 is. You can mark it on the distributor if you want. You then gently rock that. If you were mocking this up, by the way, you wouldn't be able to do this with your cam on, but if you wanted to just get some ideas, rock this and you could get it to crack the spark just on that point. If that's cracking the spark just there with plug lead 1, the rotor at plug lead 1, and you're cracking the spark, crack, crack, crack like that, it would be sparking. Leave that then the cam belt could go on, as long as that's its crankshaft's completely lined up with a white line there, and that the mountain and the moon are aligned with both valves closed here. I think you can get it where it's on one of the other opposite strokes where it's called 180 out. In other words, this can do a full turn and then still be on top dead center, but would continue to turn this and it would be on a different stroke. It wouldn't be on the compression stroke there, because that does not turn the same revolution as that. That's where I used to get it wrong. That's what used to confuse me on these. I don't know if I'm explaining this good. You used to think, right, the sun and the moon are lined up, but only is that correct if these valves are shut. I can get this. Let's prove that theory out. Let me get a 17. We'll prove how it can go what you call 180 wrong on the Pinto. Engine builders will just think I'm teaching them to suck eggs here, but if you're a novice like me, you know, and that's what it's all about. The channel, we're all learning together. We can go another turn round on this, so we come back to sun and moon. Let's see it come round. It's at the top now, and I believe that you can get it in the wrong place. So you would think now we're pointing to the dot. Here we go, bringing you into the screen. Point to the dot like that. That's on top dead center. You'd have this at piston at ignition lead 1 on your distributor. So yeah, I've timed it all up, it's all done, but I don't think it works that way. I'm almost sure that you can get it 180 out somehow. I don't know how that works. It could be that you've got it out on the distributor, and the distributor's 180 out, and you have to get it on the right firing point. I can't remember, but there is a relationship between that and the distributor. Now I've got back round again, of course, and it does make sense that logically that these have landed in the same position. So it isn't out on there. That is directly linked. So it can only be out on here, and that is that it's on not on a compression stroke, and that's where you get it wrong. So I'm just trying to think how I managed to get these wrong. I'm going to have to go back for it, because even now I'm still struggling here, as you can probably have fathomed by now. How do you get this 180 out? After all of these years, it still doesn't just snap to me like that, bang, bang. I still have to go through it all. Every time I do an engine, I have to go through, how do I get this 180 out? Is it that these wheels are never 180 out? Is it just that you get it out on this? I'm going to go through it again because I'm trying to explain to you to help you at home, and I don't even know myself. So I'm going to go through it again, and then I'll start the video again, and we'll try it again. And I know there'll be some frustrated people now typing in the box going, Pete, it's obvious. What are you doing? Yeah, I know, and it'll probably just click, but there's definitely something wrong between this and this, which I've forgotten how I managed to do it wrong, how I got it 180 out. Because I've gone round the revolution there, and of course these valves will end up in the same place, won't they? The only time they wouldn't do is if you didn't go fully round. So I don't really know how I've got there. I'm sure it's something to do with the position of the crank. Because if I go round a full revolution on this, that crank's done its full job. If I go round a revolution on this, this has done its full job. So maybe as long as you line that up with that's right every time. And it could be that I've been 180 out somehow in other ways. I don't know. Because every turn of this has to be a spark on there. Compression stroke, exhaust stroke. What I'm going to read the book, and I'm going to ask someone, because I'm actually a little unsure. I know that might sound crazy with all the work that I'm doing, and you think, well, we've built all these cars, you know. I have, and I just something in my mind tells me that in the past I've got these 180 out, okay? But I can't see how I can if I've always been using the dot and always been using that. So I don't know. I'm going to have to make some calls. I'll be right back. PC stuck, actually. Stuck! PC stuck! Help me! Type away in the box. What am I being paranoid? Is it not right? I can accept that this could be wrong somehow as well. Or by not pointing at piston at plug lead 1, but I'm sure that you can put the belt on and get it 180 out. And I'm gonna relearn, remind myself how that happens. I'm sorry for this. It's not often I get stuck, but this time, and I don't mind leaving this in the film. This is gonna be like, well, I'm leaving it in the film. You know, I've never took anything out of any film anyway, so I'm not going to start now just because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm happy that I'm doing good, to be fair, but once I learn this, or once I convince myself that I'm not wrong, I shall move on. That was a bit of a 20-minute ramble about nothing. I'm going to have to leave the engine timing situation because I think I just haven't got it wrong. But we'll be looking in the comments to see why I might have been thinking that. Okay, sorry it was a long segment there for not a lot of bang for your buck there. Apologies for that. A tip for you: you've been rebuilding your engine. You know you're going to be one day fitting it back and getting your exhaust on. You want to hold your exhaust clamp on with copper bolts. In the early days when I was a young mechanic, well, not mechanic, but young and fiddling with cars in my 20s, even, well, starting from 16, but in my 20s with Cortinas, I made the mistake of just putting normal bolts onto the exhaust studs here. You can see the exhaust studs there. Let me get a torch because I like to light the way. Torch again, but we've got two torches now for when I always lose the other torch. So those exhaust studs, one of these is bent. I don't know why. I'm going to have to straighten that, but that's definitely bent. I have got other exhaust studs if that's a fail. Copper bolts. Hang on. Stick that on there. Copper bolt. Here. Why a copper bolt? It's to do with expansion and contraction. This gets hot and cold and it slowly works a steel bolt off. The copper expands at a different rate and doesn't work its way off. It's also more malleable and grips the threads better. I think that's the reason. But you buy these copper bolts off eBay or a auto jumble, whatever, but you need some of those 2 copper bolts. In my case, as well as that, and I'll bring you up now, this thread here is not only damaged but bent. So I just put a little bit of oil on it, and I've wound a tap die, or whatever you call it, a tap device on to clean the threads up, because the bolt wasn't going on very nicely at all. I could feel the bolt binding, so rather than strip the bolt and ruin the threads of the copper bolt, and then you're going to be underneath the car. You don't want this going on when you're underneath there, because this is hard to get to. I know from experience you've got to have a long extender on your socket. So what I've done, I've cleaned the threads up. I'm going to do it again after I've straightened it, but I just wanted to get on my way. These threads, they had paint on them, rust on them, and these do get very rusty. So to make your assembly easier when you come to fitting your engine back or your exhaust on your engine, then you just clean this up with a die or a tap, whatever it's called. I can't get it back on now with one hand, but it does go like that, and then just clean it up, a little bit of WD or cutting fluid, and then just wind it on a couple of times. That way, when you fit your nice new copper bolts, it's not going to crappy threads, and it just makes life easier. Also, what you don't want to risk is snapping your stud in the manifold. I've seen that happen as well. These snap inside there. It's a nightmare. Then you've got to get a stud extractor on it. An absolute nightmare. You don't want that going on. So make sure your studs are all the way in and tight. You do that with 2 locking bolts and lock your stud into there properly, and then get yourself nice clean threads, especially on an area that's hard to get to like this, and have yourself ready your copper bolts. That way, when you fit your exhaust, it doesn't keep coming loose and vibrating off, which used to happen to me a lot till I learnt this. In fact, I would actually say that it was Tina G, because I had Tina G since I was 23 years old. I'm now 55. It's had a long time to have a car, that. In the early days, this would always happen, and exhaust would keep blowing and come loose. See how that nut goes on nicely now? It didn't before. That's perfect. So I'm going to put both those on. That stud does need straightening. That's actually not the copper bolt. There's another copper bolt. I've lost it. We've lost the copper bolt already. Again, like I say, Tina G actually had the wrong bolt on. We actually had the wrong bolt on Tina G, a steel one. Because Tina G is bits of my history catching up with me, bits of my 20s catching up with me. Some of it's more recent, it's had little restos here and there, but Tina G is my life. So these little things I'd never done, and it's got me through. It's got me to Italy, it's got me to France, it's got me to Scotland over the years. So that's another thing as well, another little tip there on the exhaust. You'll see I've put this plate on. Well, that's you might wonder what that is if you're not familiar. It's actually the wrong actual style of plate, but it's not far off. This is the genuine style, is that. Hang on, let me move the intake. There. This is a slightly different design. This was for a pickup pipe to connect to on later Cortinas Mark 5s, and they had a circle. I've cut the piece of metal off it because I didn't have the proper one. It's an airflow pickup. It's so that you can get warm air right into your inlet of your carburetor of your air cleaner pan. The air cleaner pan nose comes down here, and in winter you set it down here, and hot air is then sort of created in this cavity, and it's able to channel hot air more efficiently in to the intake air filter. So this would have had a little sort of ring there, and like a metal tube sort of connected to it. I've cut that off and then scalloped it out, so my pickup's just going to come in and sit about here, because I couldn't get the right one. They're hard to find, actually. Not hard to actually make if you really got down to it with a laser cutter and that. But I had that in stock, so I've painted it, and I'll leave that on. I've not fully bolted the manifold on, not just yet. Everything's just mock-up, as you know. So that's, I painted that, well, just primed that pump. Now I'm going to call it a day. There's the torch there, stuck to that. And look at me laces. Look what I'm doing, everyone. Get out of here. Good grief. Because I'd gone in the house, had my tea, then I've come out and not laced up my shoes. Okay, I'm beginning to fit some components back now. I'm just going to start with the water pump. This face needs to be uber clean, really uber clean. And I'm going in with Stag Seal after I've, do you know what? I'm going to go on the gasket face as opposed to the block. It'll be cleaner that way. Let me just take that off. I think I've got a cleaner way of doing this. Go on the seal itself, on the gasket itself with the Stag. The well seal there, we've talked about that earlier on. Scroll back if you didn't. It's a great gasket sealer. Well seal, Stag, well seal. Can't stress it enough. The best, just the best. So that onto the gasket. For the water pump then, you don't need a lot on it, compresses most of it out. That, as I said, that block face there, uber clean for this. Don't take any chances with your water pump. And as I've said earlier, get a good quality pump. Don't get a Chinatown special. The well seal helps you to position the gasket. The face is uber clean, sanded back. A little bit more on, just off your screen. I've always used this and it's never let me down. So, we don't want any water pump failings, any leakings. I've had them leak in the past when I've been younger and less experienced and not giving this the care that it actually needs. It's a high pressure area with the water jacket. Any messing around with a bad gasket or not cleaned face, it's going to end you up with a leaky pump. And indeed, the pumps can leak. I've had new ones go, new Chinatowns ones go. This is a quality unit. It's about 42 quid. Right, so I'm going to get the bolt ready. The specific bolt, again I mentioned this specific bolt doubles up as the bolt for the cam cover to slot into. Okay, so pump being offered up. With that special bolt down at the bottom. I just gently hold that shake-proof washer and the top securing bolt just off your screen in my right hand, just to get us locked in. Gently for now, just gently for now. Okay, there's a larger bolt here. I'm going to have to go and find it. It's a bigger diameter head. This is sometimes a 15 or a 16. It's an oddball bolt. I don't know why specifically that one is different than the rest, but it is. There's a bigger bolt there. I hope you can see it checking the screen. Now I'm just coming up. Yep, you're okay. So pump on with the Stag Seal, clean face, good quality gasket, good quality pump. Bolt to find there, then torque these up. These have to be torqued up just right. And then you're good to go. You don't want to mess around with those. If you do, your pump's going to leak. So again, important, clean that face up. Quite often these block faces here and there, the left machined clean. I tend to clear lack of them later, stop some flash rusting. But that's the idea. When the block was coming in from the factory, those faces were unpainted all the way down. In this case, in the old days, I've obviously gone round and painted in situ in the old botchy days when Pete C was a younger guy, learning. Okay, I'm going to find out other bolt. See you on another job, talk those up. Hey, the tripod, hey! $17mm with a washer on it. Just checking. Yep, it's a 17, all right. That's it. I don't know why that's so tight. I've always thought it was difficult to get in here. Yeah, I remember this. This particular bolt is always tight on the socket there, just on that hose outlet. It's always a tight fit. I don't know why that is. I'll just put a little bit of copper slip on the end of my socket because I just want to check this, but I don't want the socket to keep jamming. It is tight. Look how that doesn't want to go back in. That's really naughty, that. You just about do it. Really naughty. I don't know why. That's 17. Do you know what? I don't like that. I actually don't like that. I'm going to replace that with a smaller head bolt. I do not like it. I just don't know why they did that. It's so tight. I mean, can I service that? I'm just going to check. Let me get a hammer. I don't like it. I just don't like it. I mean, if I'm changing that pump in the car, can you do it if you have to? Why should I have to be hammering a socket onto that? It's just not right. I just don't like it. I'm not having it. I'm taking it out. I'm taking it out. That's just too big a head. I thought it's 15. It's 15 or 16. That's a 17. It isn't right. You shouldn't be having to struggle like that close to the pump. But it needs the larger head though, because it's a larger hole, so you can't really win here. OCDing me out, that is. That's the thickness. But the head, now we look at the size of the facing for it. It's designed to take a big bolt, or at least a good sized washer. Let's not have that. Let's change this. Let's get something better. I don't like it. Find any other bolt that suits. Looks like that's the only option, but it's so close. Anyway, I cleaned the bolt up. I wasn't happy with the threads on it. It was just, it felt tight going in, so I've wire wheeled the threads and copper slipped it and putting it back. I must admit, I hate the way that socket goes in there. That's just not good. Well, we can get torque on it. It isn't what I like. Bit better with a slip on it, but it's so close. So close to that. Right, I torque these up. Then we're done. That's about it. Water pump is on. Whoops. Wrong bolt. Too short. Get a longer one. Okay, got my tightening sequence head bolts going on. I'm up to number 4 on 35 foot-pounds first. Do you know what? I'm going to speed this up a little bit. Just take that off and spin them in first. Otherwise you're all over the place on the... Also make sure you can feel that the threads are engaged properly. 5, where's 6? Okay. 7. You've got ahead of me there. Just nip them all up first, you idiot. You have to keep undoing the socket. We don't stop for Popmaster. The reason you do them in specific order is to spread the load evenly across the face of the block. Right, back to number 1, but setting now at 45. So I'll just bring this up on foot-pounds the other side, 45, there we go. Coming up now. That's 44, 44.3, so there. 1, 2, excuse me. Much easier when you've got a bit of card just in front of you. Otherwise you're back and forwards to the book. Frog in a foot. That's our pass. Go round again when it says when the engine's warm, 65 to 79 foot-pounds. We shall see. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a warning. Look away if you don't like this kind of thing. You may remember, and some people were asking, what happened to the tooth? Tooth? What tooth? Well, look through the videos. We took one out and we're rebuilding. Not only do we do cars on this channel, look away for the squeamish now. Skip the next 1 minute of this film. You ain't gonna like it. This bad boy a pop. You ready? If you don't like teeth, then don't look now. But if you're the macabre type personality out there, and there are some of you, secret macabre lovers, they're just lovers of the macabre. I'm not really, but this was fitted in my jaw, in my gum socket. This bad boy is a monster. It's a 4-pronged, 4-rooted monster. 50% gold. Let's weigh it in. Never a better time. Gold reserves on the rise, folks. Invest, invest, invest. Any precious metals. And we had to sort of reassemble it and then drill out where the dentist couldn't reach. Cortina City got in there with the die grinder. Where the dentist didn't want to go, Pete got in there. And now we're going to reinstall the tooth using the super duper epoxy, speed epoxy. I'll go and get it for you. Hold on, I'm going off screen. Sorry about the little continuity, but we've got a reinstallation operation going on. Speed epoxy did the repair after we drilled out the cavity, which was too low to the gum line for them to operate. They suggested a crown. No, 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 no. We don't want any of those implants or nothing. So anyway, I thought, save on the implant, let's rebuild. So we're rebuilding, and now what we're doing with the speed epoxy, we're buffing up the tooth and just getting the profile back to factory spec, because the socket here will be molded to suit the four-pronged, four-rooted affair. A big beast. Dentist gave it an 8.5 out of 10. That's not a bad score for a 40+ year old tooth, maybe even older. When did you get your second set? Can't recall. So we clean and we profile and we buff. Okay, we're even going to finish it in ceramic white. Lovely stuff. So already had a porcelain inlay there as well, going back a few years. Little commercial break, not for the faint-hearted. Let's shape this and get it real nice, and we'll get back to the engine. Absolutely gross. Well, we're all polished up. Got our white enamel on there to finish off. All we've got to do is get that back where it belongs, back in Blighty. Oof. Okay, I'm not happy with these exhaust manifold studs, so I've just been re-tapping them. Just running a thread tap back over them and cleaning them up. I've wire wheeled them down. I just wanted to clean the threads up. As you can imagine, these are under a lot of heat, so they do rust out and makes the putting on your bolts a bit harder later on. We all want ease of assembly, so these are nicely cleaned up. This one quite clean already, but I'm going to wind this in, finish this off into the head. I'll just nip this up. Can't get a 25 socket in any of my sets, so I've cleaned all the threads out. What I do with this, I just wind it in till it hits the shank. And you think that would lock on that, but it doesn't. Then come back with GT85 on it as a lubricant. Let's turn that. I hope that radio doesn't pick up. It shouldn't do. I think it's too quiet. It'll be an interesting one. So I've got 8 of these to do. I want to get it so that my hand is not in the way. Like this. Better like that. Okay, re-tapping these. No, we don't want my arm in the way. Stop all of that. Okay, I wasn't happy with the studs here. So what I'm doing, I've got a thread tap on it, 25mm. Couldn't get a socket for this. I really wish I had a socket for this, because this spanner's awkward. I'm cleaning up the threads. I've got them in the block because it's easier that way. These are wound in, and then I'm just cleaning the threads up. As you can imagine, because these are exhaust manifold bolts, they corrode like hell. You can get new ones very easily, or you can clean the threads up with a tap and die thingy. This is a thread cutting thing. I don't know much about doing these, but that one's pretty clean now. Up till it's resistant, that should hand wind off a lot better. So when you come to assemble, things are just better, neater and easier. You've not got studs spinning around, it's just going to come together a lot better. So I'll just put the GT85 on this bolt, this stud now, and wind this back on. I would love to have had an automated tool to do this. Can we get this to start? This one's got a rounded end. They've all got various problems, these. Yeah, I can see the damage on this one. It's got past it there. Bit of GT85, it's got silicone in it. They're done. Wind that on, so we'll do that with all of these. Clean the face up there, we're ready for the exhaust gaskets. This one's going on okay now. You can back this right onto the stud and use it to wind it in. This stud isn't all the way in. You can get 2 lock nuts and lock them in that way. I'm not going to put much force on this, by the way. I'm watching the stud as I go, because otherwise this die will try and cut in and it could damage the die. Only doing this because it's going in quite easily. If I felt resistance, I wouldn't use this method to put this in. It's just as I'm happening to be recutting the threads, or cleaning the threads really, not recutting them. I'm looking at the shank to see as soon as it's closed against the block. The shank is the end of the thread, and then it'll stop turning as soon as it does. I'd have to watch copyright here. I really am. Kylie could blow the game. That's it, that's in. Take this one out. And then same for all those. Okay, I won't bore you with any more of that, but I'll tell you which one I've used. This is this M8. Hold on. Let's get everything looking good. That is. Oh, it's not marked. It should be marked. Can't see it. Have to get lucky with that and guess. Little bits of fragments of metal coming off as it's cleaned it up. So you can tell it's just taking off some burring. Deburring, burring. We'll be right back. Gaskets on, manifold on, and let's get our nuts onto there. So we're going to spin all those on now. I think I might be out of battery power. Yeah. Whoops. Can't get to all of those. This one's got an engine bracket on it. So we'll have to get the others with a spanner. Can't reach all of those. But it made life a lot easier with those nice clean threads. And then try and get exhaust manifold bolts that haven't rounded off. These are all good ones. They can round off these. So watch out for that. But yeah, I'm waiting for this engine came with one hook, but the back hook was missing off this engine. You know, the lifting hoist hooks, they fit over here. I've ordered a new pair, a copy pair, but they look good. They're finished in gold, passive 8 off eBay, $17.99. So I'll get another pair of engine hooks. I'll have a spare front one then, but doesn't matter. So yeah, cleaned up threads, bolts on, shake washers at the back, shake hands. Yeah, and that's it. You'll notice blue dots on each bolt. That means they've been torqued up. That's it for today. I'm going to have a clean up where just slowly chipping away at it. I won't bolt the power steering pump back just yet till I've got that engine hook on, because that's got to come back to get the spanner. Well, you could get to it without moving that, but yeah, bit by bit I'll do the manifold side, the inlet manifold side now. So the face was cleaned up, new gaskets went on, these will need torquing up, and then that's the exhaust manifold bit done. We'll switch to the other side then, slowly getting the parts back together. Okay, we're getting ready to fit this inlet manifold. you want to pay particular attention to the inlet, the water inlet or the water feed, to the cooling feed coming out the block into this and then exiting or coming out of that pipe, don't know which way the direction of flow of water is. However, we really want to make sure the gasket sealer goes around that area, okay? They are prone to going if you're not careful. Your bolts here, tighten them evenly, start with the middle two, then work away outwards on this, torquing up at the right spec. I haven't got that spec right now, but I'll be checking it out. That's the inlet manifold. Obviously clean that face off. It is an injection head, which means the inlet ports are teardrop shape. That doesn't matter, the gasket for this type will work. You don't need to get the injection type gasket. You just use the normal one on an injection head. It doesn't affect it. You've done it before. Okay, so that's cleaned up and ready to rock. I've got a few other jobs on the go. An engine mount to fit on that side, looking for the bolts. And then I'm going to be putting the cam belt on. Okay, so that's another section, getting ready to go. Here's a tip on your oil catcher can. They're normally like this, quite often rattling and very loose. That's an interference fit there, and every one I've ever seen is always loose. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to clean that up on the wire wheel. I've already started. Clean that so it's uber clean where the oil catcher fits. This is your breather can, catcher can. I'm going to put some solder on this, then just slightly file it back. I'm just going to build the thickness up a little bit. Then I'm going to use a Loctite, permanent Loctite on it to drop it in place like that. That's all I can do with these. I mean, you could braze that up as well, but I'm going to use solder, then just lightly sand it back and drop it in with some Loctite so it's locked. We need it just slightly standing off the engine there like that. Oil catcher can. I've cleaned it back, brazed it back, wire wheeled it back. I've got a new seal for it as well at the top. They go brittle, so I've got a new one of those, and that can fit in there. It's painted in a satin, chassis black satin. Okay, so I'm going to do that, fix the catcher can. Right, here's the first stage. What I've done, I've just used my small mini gas torch. I bring the flame from the inside of the catcher can, not the top. That way the solder flows a lot better. Can't do this live, but it's something like this. Inside, you'll see the solder flow in a sec. There. So I'm going to do that all the way round. And then I'm just going to put the Loctite on, then work it in. What'll happen is the solder will slightly abrase easier than braze would. It'll grind into it'll find its way into the slot on the engine because solder's quite soft, and then the Loctite should take over. That should fix this problem. It's a common problem. Let's see how we get on with that. Smoke alarm situation. Now what's that smoke alarm's going to kick? You get the idea? And that has worked very nicely. Good solid fit there. What you do when the solder's on, just file off any high parts, but not too much, and then wiggle it into here like that, and it'll go in and it'll just find its way. And what I used in the end, just to finish it off, I just used this JB weld, but only a little smear around it. So I mixed a bit of JB and just went round, and that worked for that. Okay, so getting messy again. I've got a power steering rack prepping up. Track rod ends are on, and the locking nuts are on. I've cleaned the threads up on the end of those control bars. I'm going to put some repack a bit of grease in here because it looks a bit dry. It's got some in, but I'll repack it a little bit. Track rod end there as well. and then the saddle clamp there, and it bolts on directly there. This saddle clamp, you have to use the one that's normally at this end, so you swap it to this end because it's a bigger diameter than a normal Cortina Mk3 rack. And then you've got to make your own packing rubber, because the existing rubber, unless you can get a Sierra one, won't fit on there. So you can use thin rubber strips as an insulator, but you've got to make sure that this saddle clamp comes in parallel, and it's going to land on the 2 locating bolts. And this should pull down. That's probably a bit too thick for what we want. We could do with a sort of thinner rubber slice. I might have a look for a Sierra clamp rubber just in case there's one out there that suits, but it rests on the rubber bed, which is the original Cortina rubber but cut off, so that'll still slot square onto the Cortina front suspension chassis clip. It's designed to go like that. That lip there fits across, and that would fit flush on the suspension cradle at the front of the car. Then this then sits on top, and then you would have a packing piece of rubber on this saddle, and that would go over like that. Then you'd pull down, it'll crush it in a bit. That's the right height, I think, although because this is a larger diameter, it could be that that now kicks the rack up a little bit. Okay, if it does, then we'll use a thinner rubber piece and just make an L shape, perhaps half the thickness of that. That could be not taking into account the larger diameter, so we need to keep our eye on that rubber mount there. It might be wise to order some rubber strips, and we could make our own. Quite easy to do. It's hollow. It's not going to pass any vibration that through the car. It's more, this is more just to stop metal to metal. It's going to lock it down, and of course it locks down on those permanent bolts there. It doesn't have an insulator there, so they've done away with the insulation aspect by bolting it straight down anyway. Okay, Cortina one is a little bit more insulated. I think the idea was that if this is hydraulically coupled, it wouldn't transmit the vibration the same way because you'd have a damping effect. Although it is hardwired, of course it is, it's just power assisted. So is it harsher steering when you've got power steering in terms of retrofitting it to a Cortina because you lose that rubber isolator? I don't know. I've never noticed any problems on my cars anyway, and 2 of them have got power steering. This is the same rack as the one I've got in Ruby. So I can't remember what I actually did at that end. I have poked the torch down into the bay outside and had a look, and it looks like it's that clamp with a thin rubber strip in it. So it could be that I made it. I'd have to check that out, or it could have come with a strip that someone had made because I bought that as a kit. Anyway, back to the engine we go. Multitasking all the time. PC at the controls. This is Cortina City. You saw me finishing the face of this inlet manifold, of course. The reason why I stopped on the inlet manifold was because I wanted to get the catch can out of the way first. We have got for the catch can these new rubber seals. They're over here somewhere. A short-term memory kicks in again, and I've totally lost them. Yeah, I've totally lost them. Okay, what do I do with those? No, they've gone. There's also the core plug to go in the back of the engine. I'm missing the upper core plug. You can't do this when it's on the stand. Yeah, I could have done that one. They are actually in good order, but wouldn't you kick yourself if that went? You know, so that's the engine out again. If that went, you know, you've done your lower seal, your rear crank seal. You know, we should really do the core plug. The thing is, though, they are new because the engine's been rebuilt. So, you know, and I don't like disturbing it either. So, answers on a postcard whether Pete should swap the core plug, given that that one looks okay, and that the jacket inside didn't show that it's been a corroded type engine. So the odds are they're all right inside too. However, you are putting yourself at a slight risk there. Okay. So steering rack, track rod ends on. We need to get some zip ties now ready to zip tie this up. When we put the grease in there and close that back up, then that's done. Put that to one side. I've cleaned up the shaft part there. It was a bit rusty. cleaned up the threads on the end of the track arms, and then loosely screwed on the track rod control track rod ends. Track rod ends on, pair of those. So a tidy up is in order now. It's coming up to 5 o'clock. Okay, whilst this rack is clean, the grease that was in it, I've took the boots off, the grease that was in it left a lot to be desired, so I just thought it's not worth it messing about when you can just quickly whiz them boots off and give it a quick check over. There's a breather tube that goes between each bellow end which stops the bellows from expanding with the air pressure. Okay, so they have an inlet hole on the power steering one, which, because you can move power steering quicker, these would act like air bellows and it would compress the air like that. You see what I mean? So they have this breather tube, so one pulls and one pushes, one sucks and one blows. That's that tube there. So it's a breather line between the two ends. As one extends, it creates a vacuum. As one compresses, it creates a pressure, and that is an equalising tube there. I've made sure that's clean, blasted it out. I'm going to repack with grease now and then slide the boots back on. Okay, you just saw me shaving off a little bit of metal so that that could fit. You can see how it goes now. This rib here is just a little bit high, and with a power steering rack it can just touch it. It's not much though. I probably took off a little bit too much. It doesn't really matter. So both parts of that rib, and then to fix it, if you're doing this same as me and you've got this type of rack, at least have a look at that if you want to check if it's the same as yours. I believe it's Sierra, could be wrong. If you do, then keep the original rubber that was from this end and slice the top off it so it creates like a base pad, and it'll still have a little tubular groove in the base pad, and then keep the saddle from the other end, and that fits this end and it's the right diameter to fit, and then it clamps down quite nice and squashes the rubber. If you evenly torque up the bolts, it clamps up quite nice. That's not going anywhere. These bolts here need to be longer than the ones that you get with your old rack. There you go for your old rack bolt, but you need a longer version, okay? Because it's a thicker mounting point there, and this doesn't have a rubber base as far as I know. You could make one if you felt you wanted to. So yeah, slightly longer bolts, about another third longer than that does it. These have got a shank on them which actually worked quite nice. Just a bit of luck that I had them in stock. There's a sort of shank on them blank there that goes through, so they work perfectly. Obviously got to fit the locking tabs. I'm just mocking it up now. They'll go on there like this, so you still get your locking tab as well working. So that's all good. So that's going to work. It looks like it clears this engine mount where I thought you had to take a little bit out. Actually, this clip is okay. It could be that Series 2 pre-facelift already took that little section out. I don't know. I'm sure that on other cars I had to scallop a bit out of this engine cradle area. this seems to fit. There doesn't seem to be anything in the way, and everything's good to go. In terms of the steering linkage, I ended up with a double jointed, so I've got a cadent join on mine. This is how I did my join. It doesn't really need a double cadence, a double UJ, but the actual larger size spline that you do need happened to be connected directly to a UJ as opposed to something I could cut and weld. So I've welded on there, and I've inserted the rubber isolator as well. Now upon rotation, it's very smooth. There's no binding or tight spots on that, so that's moving very good. Very, 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 very smooth. And you can see the UJ doing its job there through its range of motion. And on here, the second cadent, sorry, not the second UJ that forms the cadent, that does actually move a little bit, so it's actually doing some work there, which is probably helping us. It's probably putting less flex in that rubber there. On the other cars, they're only single UJs, and I do feel, I must admit, when I was doing the other cars and I did turn this, there was a little bit of resistance, and you can feel that on Ruby, and that'll probably because it may well need two UJs, but there's not a problem. It's nothing I'm going to change, but I think it's not done us any harm to have two joins there. So you know, it is doing it. It's not just a dead inline UJ that's redundant. It is actually doing some work. I'll see if you can show you what I mean. You will see there's a point where it does some work about there when a motion on it, so that'll help. That actually makes it very smooth, so that's a success. So we're in there now. I may just put a little bit of chassis black on this clip. It is looking a bit rusty, but don't forget that we're not going crazy on this. Okay, we've got to go with what we got. We've got to get to Gibraltar. We're running out of time. If I start messing around painting this now, it's going to be a pain in the arse, to be fair. I'll give it a quick lick. That's all I can do. Don't mark me down on that. Okay, see you in a sec, PC. Right, I've got the locking tabs on, just going in, evenly spaced that.